You know, Eli, I haven't been this excited since I went to Disney World.
I know what you mean, but this night's going to be more than magical. It's going to be elite.
Oh, I like that.
Hey, guys, just keep it simple. Let's go on there like a bunch of crazed dogs.
Oh, come on. Go.
Welcome, Giants fans, to an Evening with Legends presented by Verizon. What a special evening we have for you as we celebrate 100 years of New York Giants football. But we want to really dive into the history of this franchise, one of the pillar franchises of the National Football League as it embarks upon season 100. And no better person to welcome to the stage right now than the President and CEO of the New York Football Giants, Mr. John Mara. John, as the fans made their way into the theater here at Madison Square Garden, the history just jumped out with the Hall of Fame bus and the uniforms. And you think about 1925 and when your grandfather purchased this franchise. I know the fans have always been most important to the Mara family. What does this evening of celebration mean to you?
Yeah, you know, what is amazing to me is the number of fans that have stayed so loyal to this franchise for so many years. And I guarantee you that many of the people out there are second and third generation fans and ticket holders, yeah. And that is something that is not lost on us, and that is something that we appreciate so much. There is no fan base, in my opinion, in all of sports that is as loyal as the New York Giant fan base.
After the years in the Polo Grounds, the decision was made by, the family to take this opportunity to go to Yankee Stadium. What did that mean for this franchise?
I think, Yankee Stadium was bigger and in much better condition than the Polo Grounds was in those days, and it really gave us a new identity. And really, for me, the teams that we had from that first year in Yankee Stadium, 1956, through the early 60s is what really set our identity. And that's when a lot of the people in this audience here and their fathers and maybe even grandfathers really became fans. Those teams with Frank Gifford and Y.A. Tittle, Charlie Connerly, Sam Huff, Andy Robustelli, so many great Hall of Famers. That to me really made us an institution in New York and really set the franchise on the proper course.
And then in 1991, the Tisch family purchasing the other half of the New York Giants. And with the Maras and the Tisches together, the Giants have been to 3 Super Bowls and won 2 of them. What was that like? What was that like in those early years? Because I remember, Mr. Tisch, and that's the first thing he said to me. It's not Mr. Tisch, it's Bob. Call me Bob.
What I always appreciated about Bob was he really helped us, especially from a business point of view. He made us a much more professionally run organization on the business side. And I just was sad that he was not able to be there for the 2007 Super Bowl. He died 3 weeks after my father did. So he wasn't able to experience that. He was there for the 2000 Super Bowl, which is not such a happy memory for us. But we really had a great relationship, as I do now with all the Tisches and Steve in particular.
Yeah, and obviously maybe one of the greatest wins in the history of Giant Stadium was the 2000 NFC Championship game, 41-0 over the Vikings. So that had to be special for those two gentlemen who were business partners.
That was special to be standing on the field at the end of the game watching the fans celebrate. Probably many of you were at that game that are in this audience. And that was a special moment. I think you're right. It was our greatest win in Giant Stadium.
John, thank you so much. John Mara. I want to bring up a couple of co-hosts that grew up Giants fans. Our first person to bring up played for the New York Giants. He won a Super Bowl for the Giants. From Hillsborough, New Jersey, please welcome Sean O'Hara. Next host, who's going to be with us throughout the course of the evening, grew up in Freehold, New Jersey, was a diehard Giants fan as a kid growing up, You see him on NFL Network and Fox Sports. Please welcome Peter Schrager. So I got a question for you. Who is the Giants' all-time leading scorer, Sean? Who scored the most points in Giants history?
I'm going to have to go with Mr. Mara's favorite player, Frank Gifford.
It's a really good guess. Peter, who do you think is the all-time leading?
The guy that you blocked, I think Tiki Barber.
Tiki Barber scored a lot of points, ran for a lot of yards. Well, you know what? We have the Giants' all-time leading scorer with us here tonight. And it's time to bring him out here on the stage. In the course of his 9-year career with the Giants, he scored 646 points. He revolutionized the position as the first ever soccer-style kicker in the NFL. Please welcome Pete Gogolak. Pete, you come to the United States, you go to Cornell. I'm sure football wasn't the thing you were thinking about when you were growing up.
I don't think anybody was alive here when I played. But
oh, there are.
But listen, here's the guy who has never seen an American football game up till age 15. Was born in Eastern Europe, came to this great country, and the first time, never even heard of American football. I turned the TV on, and I saw Lou Groza kicking straight on with his toe. And I said to my father, what a funny way to kick a football. So I just kind of became obsessed, and I know I could do this, and it's an easier way to approach and hit the ball, and I think I should have patented it because everybody else is doing it.
Well, Pete, we want to thank you for being here with us. The all-time leading scorer, Pete Gogolak. Thank you. Great to see you. Number 3.
Terrific fans. Keep it up.
Wellington Mara was so passionate about scouting, and it's kind of fitting because any great championship team happens when you draft well. And that'll be a theme throughout the course of the night. Mr. Mara was at the forefront of scouting. Sometimes he'd be in the press box and they'd send things down on a line to get some information to the sideline. Now you see everybody with Microsoft Surfaces and they're looking at this and that. He did it the old way. He was ahead of his time. Mr. Mara certainly was. With that said, let's bring out the general manager of the New York Football Giants, Mr. Joe Schoen. And the head coach of the New York Football Giants, Mr. Brian Dable.
Joe, as you're trying to now kind of change this defense, right? Different scheme now with Shane Bowen. How did that kind of change your approach to the draft this year?
Yeah, really the pass rush, getting after the quarterback, and that obviously happened pre-draft with the acquisition of Brian Burns. So when Shane came in, worked for Coach Parcells, who's back there, and a long time ago he said, coaches come and go. You got to draft good football players, and you don't want to pigeonhole them to certain schemes. So when Shane came in and some of the great Giants teams, they had really good pass rush. And, I've got to know Ernie Accorsi through this process, and that's a conversation that Ernie and I had as well. So, with Kayvon, Dexter, and the addition of Brian Burns, and I think Shane Bowen's a really good coach and is going to do a good job for us.
Joe, Coach Dable, exciting. Let's talk a little about just being a part of this history. Kind of in wrapping up and kicking off 100 seasons and kind of what it means to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's a privilege and an honor to be in this position. And when you're sitting backstage with, Coach Parcells and Coach Coughlin, 2 Super Bowl winning coaches. Yeah, and then the Mara family, the Tisch family, and the whole tradition in 1925 and the 4 Super Bowls and the other 4 championships. See Banks back there and LT and Sims and McConkey and all those guys. And then to the 2000, we see some of these players that have come by for training camp and Stray and Eli and Tuck and I can name all of them. But it's certainly an honor and a privilege, something that I don't take lightly, something that's very important to me. Thank you to the families, the ownership families. Thank you to your fans. We're going to work our asses off to try to be as good as we can be this year.
I don't know if I could say anything better than that.
No.
He nailed it. They
No.
nailed it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Shane, the general manager, Brian Dable, the head coach, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, let's welcome a couple of the players from the current Giants team. Please welcome Bobby Okereke. It's Kayvon Thibodeau. All right, Bobby and Kayvon, I'll start with the same question for both of you. What was it like knowing with this 100-year celebration of this storied franchise to interact with all these people and meet some new ones for the first time?
Yeah, it was incredible. I feel like I'm ready to play a football game right now. Just hanging out with the likes of Harry Carson, Lawrence Taylor, Carl Banks, Jason Sehorn, list goes on. Those are Giants legends. Those are guys who, have reached the pinnacle of success in our league, and it's just very inspiring, and I'm looking up to those guys.
How about for you, Kayvon?
When you got a guy like LT, right, now, we just kind of exchanged in the back, and he's like, man, how many sacks did you have last year? And I'm like, I had 11 and a half, pretty good. He's like, what'd you play, 3 games? And it's like, when you got those shoes to fill, you have no choice but to be great. So, I got the greatest guys to look up to, and now I just continue to set goals and accomplish them.
Bobby Okereke, Kayvon Thibodeau. To win championships, you need that tremendous leadership. And the New York Giants certainly have had that in their 100-year history. Please welcome to the stage Coach Bill Parcells, Coach Tom Coughlin. Coach Parcells, Coach Coughlin, to be around your former players here this evening, what does it mean to you to see all these guys that gave so much for you to help this franchise win?
Well, they're the ones that gave the blood, and they represent a very special group of young men for me, and did an awful lot for me personally, for the organization, for New York Giants football, and they deserve that appreciation, and I've always tried to give it back to them.
Coach Coughlin, what about for you and to see all those guys back there?
Well, it's, you get used to seeing them every day, okay, and then all of a sudden you don't get to see them at all. So when you do see them, it's wonderful. It's a whole different concept. It's friend to friend, that kind of thing. They maintain that coach to player discipline, I guess you'd call it, but it's still it's very, very moving.
And the draft picks, being able to bring those young players along and have them immerse in your program with veteran guys. And George Young, hit home runs throughout the 80s.
Well, that's possible when you have good veteran guys. When the veteran guys are going to accept the new ones to come in like they were accepted when they came in, and that's how I used to phrase it to them, accept them like you were accepted.
Coach Coughlin, obviously your first year was 2004. The Giants get Eli Manning, so now you got your cornerstone. All these players start coming into the mix. How did you bring it all together?
How'd they all come together? When I walked in the locker room, to be honest with you, we had to change the I to we. Once we forgot about, the individual stuff and thought about winning as a team, then I think, we started to make progress.
1990, Super Bowl 25. You're the head coach. He's your wide receivers coach. You're playing the Bills, and now you get the ball to start the third quarter. But there was a play in this drive in and about the 30-yard line of the Buffalo Bills. If you don't make it, you're kicking a field goal. You go up 1 instead of going up 5 at that point, which turned out to be the difference. Let's take you back to Tampa. Super Bowl 25, 3rd and 13.
12-10 the score. Buffalo, third quarter. Hostetler has the ball and the snap throws. Complete. He's got Ingram for maybe a first down. He'll try to the 20. Yes, he's got it. What effort. What effort. He caught that ball at the 25 and got free of 3 separate tackles. I didn't think there was any chance to be able to do it. A nice spin move, a cutback, great athletic play.
What were you thinking as you watched what Mark Ingram did, and did that kind of signify what your team was all about?
I think, if I was to be totally honest with you, we were trying to get something to get into field goal range to ensure the field goal possibility. And we didn't want to risk turning it over in that area, obviously. So that short, what we call ex-shallow cross, I think that was the name, right, Tom?
That was the end of it.
Yeah.
That was it.
Did you show Ingram that move as the wide receiver coach? If you get in trouble?
It took me a long time to teach him the 5 broken tackles, but I was able to do it.
You both work for Mr. Mara, Wellington Mara. What was he like as a support system for you, Bill?
It was the best. He was one of the patriarchs of this league. He was among the group of men that had the vision for this whole enterprise of the NFL. And he was always ready for next Sunday. And
Coach Coughlin, you worked for both Mr. Mara and Mr. Tisch, and you had to navigate this football team through really an unparalleled situation. Mr. Mara passes away in the 2005 season, and then Mr. Tisch passes away just a couple of weeks later. What was the messaging to your team, and how did you keep it all together? Because that team wound up going to the postseason that year as well.
Well, there was tremendous emotion. I mean, there was grief, there was sorrow. Mr. Mara and Mr. Tisch were both very close to the players. And the way that all came down, for example, with Mr. Mara, and the team was so determined that the rest of the nation would see how we felt about Mr. Mara. Quite frankly, it was a tremendous game for the Giants, for the Giant fans. You know, it was a 36-0 game, 21 points, I think, in the first quarter. I think Washington had 145 yards total offense. We rushed it for over 250, I believe. It was Mr. Mara's kind of game.
This is it. 2 of the greatest Giants of all time together.
The man that doesn't know rules got to sit. You go smoke it while you're inside?
No, actually, listen. Hey,
What? I'm listening.
he's a good player. He was a good player.
Oh, here we go.
I had to listen. I had to tell him one day, look, man, listen. There's a hey, listen. All he wants to do is throw bombs every day. You know, 60-yard bombs, 70-yard bombs and stuff. And I'm saying, hey, man, there's a guy 10 feet in front of you that's open. How about hitting that something?
So you know what he's trying to tell you, Peter, is this. Any success I had is because of him.
Sure.
Hey, listen, hey.
Okay, here we go.
Yes, I did. Listen. I groomed him. You know, I mean, and listen, and he became a player in 85. 84.
Give me more. Hopefully.
No, 84.
A little more.
84.
Well, I killed it my rookie year. What the hell? You know, let's go.
Your rookie year.
Yeah.
I wasn't there.
I know, thank God.
And Coach Parcells, you had a quarterback that was a 2-time Super Bowl champion, and he was the MVP of Super Bowl 21. Please welcome Phil Simms. So Coach Coughlin wasn't to be outdone. He needed a quarterback as well, and he had the 2-time Super Bowl MVP, Eli Manning. Now, as both coaches talked about, you got to have that veteran leadership, and you need a captain. And Coach Coughlin certainly had that in his final season, going out as a Super Bowl champion. A member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Michael Strahan. The captain, Harry Carson. One of the greatest players in the history of the National Football League, Lawrence Taylor. All right, Phil, being here with these two coaches, to be a part of this night and this Giants history and to be a 2-time Super Bowl champion, what's it been like for you this evening?
Well, first off, to the fans out there, I'm just honored all of you showed up to celebrate this with all the players and coaches. And it's, I think we all dream about what we want to do in life. I never thought my life and all my dreams ever were going to be this good. And so it's been great to play all my years with the Giants, with the fans. Bill Parcells said to me once, he said a lot of things. Usually the first word was to begin with an F, but we won't get into that. I had to go home and check my birth certificate, see my first name begin with a P or an F. F and Sims. But I'll just say this too, and I really mean this deep in my heart. I say it all the time. These two people right here changed the lives of so many men. It's unbelievable.
Eli, for you, being here celebrating 100 years of the New York Giants is kind of odd in a sense, right? Because it was in this room during the 2004 draft, right here in this theater where the NFL draft used to be. Your name was called by the San Diego Chargers.
You don't have to mention that. We can skip that part.
I forgot that.
But as you get the news that you're going to the Giants, and Ernie Accorsi negotiates this trade, and the smile on your face, knowing that you were going to the Giants, and then to win 2 Super Bowls for this franchise, sum up what this evening is like for you.
Well, it's just an unbelievable honor to be sitting on this stage. Legendary coaches, legendary players, guys who I grew up watching, Phil Simms and Harry Carson, Lawrence Taylor. I mean, I still remember playing Nintendo Tecmo Bowl and being the New York Giants, and LT was unblockable, and he blocked every field goal, so it was a great strategy going against my brothers. So I could maybe beat him for once, and to get to play with Michael Strahan and help him win a Super Bowl. So coming to New York was a dream come true, and you know, I knew at the time, talking to my dad, he would tell me about the New York Giants, and he grew up watching the Giants and Charlie Connerly and their great teams, and just what a great franchise they were, and it's been a blessing to play 16 years, my entire career in New York, to still be a part of the organization, to be a part of this storied franchise that's not only been such a great part about New York, but it's been so important to the NFL and Wellington Mayer and what he did for this league and the game. It's been unbelievable to learn the history, to be a part of it, and to be on stage tonight. It's just icing on the cake.
Michael, you're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You were actually drafted in 1993 when Lawrence was still playing. You broke his sack record as well, which he laughs at that.
We've had discussions about, they'll bring that up.
Well, you got to remember, Lawrence's rookie year, sacks were not counted.
I've heard that part. And a lot more. But I will say this, it's absolutely amazing to be here. I mean, I remember wearing a uniform that said the 75th year for the Giants, now to be here for the 100th. It's special, and it's special to be here with all you fans to celebrate it, because there is nothing like running out of that tunnel with the fans when you come out of that opening and you just see 80,000 Giants fans, nothing like it. And Eli said it. He did 16 years. You did 12 years. I did 15. I did 15. You did 12. And you did how many? 13. 12, 13, 15, 16, 16. Or 15. All with one team. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. And I'll never forget the first time Lawrence came into the locker room, and I didn't say you walked in. It's like he was on a conveyor belt. You were God to me. It's like you glided in, like you weren't even moving your legs and you were going across the room. And I'll just never forget those moments that have made my life what they are, because without this organization, without you fans, I'm not here. None of us are here, and I'm so eternally grateful that I'm back here for the 100th anniversary of the New York Giants.
Harry, you were drafted in the mid-'70s. Obviously, there were some lean years, but guiding these guys along, being part of that cornerstone, and then to end it, in the later part of your career, to win that championship and go to the Hall of Fame. Just talk a little bit about your journey and to be now part of the great history of the Giants.
Well, when I was drafted to play with the Giants, I didn't know a whole lot about the Giants, but I did know that there was a rich history behind the New York Football Giants, and those players who had played with the Giants. Those names, you hear those names and you remember, like Robustelli. And I thought to myself, I don't know how long I'm going to play, but I do know that if I do play, I want to be mentioned in the same breath as those great players who preceded me. And what I figured out with the Giants was, you don't necessarily have to be the best player on the field, but Giant fans demand that you give your best.
All right,
So-
but I want to get Lawrence in here now, because Lawrence, a whole different idea, right? You come. What's going through your brain when you come here and you get drafted by the Giants and you're going to play for the New York Giants?
When I signed with the Giants, I consider myself a good player. All right. And I remember doing the practices and things like that. Hey, Bill Parcells, he came to me and he says, you know what? He wanted a meeting. He wanted a meeting with Harry Carson. He wanted to meet with Phil Simms. He wanted to meet with all the big names on the team. And he asked me to come to the meeting. I said, what the hell I'm coming to a meeting? I'm a rookie. He said, yeah, because you showing another side of football. Because he said that, I tried to show another side of football that, hey, listen, I'm going to hustle, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I try to make a difference. I had a crew, Brad Van Pelt, Brian Kelly, and Harry Carson, the Crunch Bunch. And listen, we started crunching. Okay, so I'll tell you, if you want to give somebody the credit for me, that man right there. That man right there.
Perfect way to end the segment.
One of the greatest linebackers to ever play the sport, one of the greatest Giants of all time, Carl Banks. 100 years of Giants football. What's that mean to you?
Man, it's special. When I got the call, I was like, it took a minute for it to sink in because I normally don't get excited about a lot of things, right? I just take it all in stride, but I'm like, when you think about 100 years, I'm one of the greatest players in the history of this franchise. It's very special.
You know, it's interesting. I was going through the history, and it's like they had LT, they had Carson. You get drafted 3rd overall. That's a tough room to crack, and yet immediately you became one of the most beloved Giants. What's your memories of those early years as a New York Giant?
So I didn't have a choice. So it's a little-known public story, but my first day in the Giants locker room, there's Lawrence and Harry sitting on, like, containers outside the training room, and I go, I'm giggly, I'm like, hi, Mr. Carson, hi, Mr. Taylor. And Lawrence says, what's up, homeboy? Because that's his favorite saying. And Harry looked me straight in the eye, and he says, so what the hell are you going to do to get on the field? And at that point, I'm like, okay, this is real. This is real, and I'm going to have to show and prove.
So Lawrence touched upon it a little bit as far as some of the guys that came before him. And we mentioned Brad Van Pelt, who the Giants took in the 1973 draft in the 2nd round. Well, they decided to dip back into the linebacker pool in the 14th round. And they took a guy out of Cal Lutheran who wound up playing 143 games for the New York Football Giants. Please welcome Brian Kelly. Please welcome George Martin. Lawrence, what'd you learn from that guy? And what'd you learn from this guy?
What did I learn from who?
Well, let's start with George, because I know it's probably better.
Absolutely nothing.
Attaboy, babe.
LT's back.
He's a great friend. Okay, but he can't tell me.
I will tell you this, however. I learned a hell of a lot from him as to what not to do.
Yes. Wow.
Oh, boy.
Very good point, George. I'm telling you, honest to truth. I mean, we'd set up, and I'd call the defensive signal, and we'd break the huddle, and I'd line up in my position, and all of a sudden I hear psst, psst, psst. And I look over, and it's LT. He goes, what do I do? And I go, you rush the passer. This happened
not as smart
almost
as
every time after the huddle.
The
on
truth
field.
is coming out now.
Well, all right, we're here from the defensive side of the ball. Phil, what was it like going against these guys in practice every day? How did you get anything done?
For everybody out there, for all those years, it was live almost every day with them. I would hand the ball off and go, oh my God, thank God I'm not getting hit today. But one guy that always wanted to hit me was Lawrence Taylor. One day he just goes, Simms, just once. And I said, yeah, I know, but you can't. It was great.
Let's get some more of your teammates out here because we're going to move into the 80s. So this guy joined the Giants in 1984, spent 5 years with the Giants, came from the Naval Academy, and obviously very famous for waving a white towel. Phil McConkey. Please welcome Joe Morris, Otis Anderson, Mark Bavaro, Carl Banks. Otis, you win Rookie of the Year with the Cardinals, so you had to play against these guys. And then miraculously in 1986, you get traded to these guys, and then you go on to be the Super Bowl MVP. What was it like for you after playing against these guys for those years?
First of all, you bring me out and you put me by the guys who chased me all my life. You sit me down. Harry was one of the most intimidating linebackers I've ever seen before in my life. He used to tell me all the time that I would tip plays by looking where I was running. I say, no, Harry, I was looking where I thought you were going to be at. Then you got Brian Kelly, linebacker in the middle. If I ran from Harry, I'd run into him. And if I didn't run into him, I'd see George. And then at the end, you get this young baby guy right here at the end chasing me. So what did I do to deserve to be sitting down here with all defensive players? And you put Joe Mars back there, you put McConkey back there, but I would prefer to have been back there where I felt warm.
All right, from one MVP to another one, Phil, what was it like playing with these guys?
Well, it's great. You know, everyone had a great role. Of course, OJ, great pass protector. He had this thing he'd learned in St. Louis. When he was a play action pass, he would go out. When he was open, what would you do, OJ? Hoo, hoo. And what's really amazing, when I heard it, I just turned and threw it to him. And Phil McConkey, very underrated as a receiver. And, you know, I always thought he would run out on the field before the game and wave that towel. And I go, man, you know, we don't do that stuff on this team. And I was like, and then I was close enough one day, Parcells goes, all right, McConkey, go out there and get him going. Let's go. So I didn't know Bill was telling you to do it. But Joe Morris was the workhorse for us in 1986. He wasn't good. He was great. The whole year. And Mark Bavaro, I told Mark this, yes. We created passes that people copied in the league. Just throw it. Well, here's the story. I'm watching the preseason game against Pittsburgh. Bill Parcells is in there, and he goes, Sims, why didn't you throw it to Bavaro? And I said, I got upset, and I said, I won't say exactly what I said. He's covered. And he goes, Sims, you just don't understand. When he's covered, he's open. And that just shows you how bad I understood it. And really, it created this thing. When he was covered, I just would throw it. He would turn and catch it, go down and catch it. Wherever I threw it, he was going to catch it. And it was awesome. So that.
Mark, how'd you feel about that? You were open even when you weren't.
Yes.
It wasn't my job to throw me the ball.
That's a great line.
Oh, that's the best.
A man, a few words.
But he's, you know, summed it up, though. The great champions of the New York Football Giants. Let's bring in some of the guys that helped create the foundation and carry on the Giants tradition. Please welcome Jason Sehorn, Amani Toomer, Tiki Barber. I want to ask you about the four of you, Jason, Amani, Tiki, and Michael. 2000, you guys are playing in the NFC Championship game, and most of these guys were there on the sideline. A lot of these guys were in attendance, the greats that came before you. What was it like to have that presence around you guys that lifted you to win an NFC Championship and inspire you and understand the history of what the New York Giants were all about?
I think understanding the history helps when you look at people on the sideline who are supporting you and showing up, especially at those big moments, because they've already done that. Like, they've been there, they've done that. And so when you see the support from the people who set the foundation before you actually arrived, supporting you, it gives you a whole lot more confidence.
I actually got hurt the week before against the Eagles, and I'm sitting on the training table, and Sean Payton comes up to me. He was like, I just watched the film, and I'll tell you what, you better get ready because we're putting the ball up in the air. And I remember just being so excited. I had a swollen ankle and I did something to my knee. And I remember I said, Coach, I'm gonna be fine. I walked off the table and I started hopping on with one leg. I'm like, Coach, I'm gonna be ready. Look at this. And it was a spectacular day. And I'll never forget LT and all the greats waving the white towels when we walked out. It was electric. I've never seen the stadium like that before. And because of that, we destroyed, the Vikings 41, and they still talk about that game. They still talk about 41 Donut up in Minnesota. I'll tell you that. But it was very special, and I'll never forget that. That was the best home game I can ever remember. The energy in that stadium.
How about for you, Tiki?
I played that game with a broken forearm, and I did it against the Cowboys. Philippi Sparks, so you guys remember, he hit me as I scored a
touchdown. He was on the Cowboys then, sorry.
At the Cowboys then, and he broke my arm. And I remember going, and Ronnie Barnes and I had this conversation just a couple weeks ago. Dr. Warren came into the training room and was like, Teak, we got to do surgery. Your season's done. And I said, Doc, that's not a blanket option. I think this team can go far. And so we came up with a novel solution. They created this carbon graphite cast for me to wear. So I played in the divisional round and ultimately in the championship game, which I didn't do anything in, but I was able to play in the Super Bowl. And I just remember, man, I'm gonna get a chance to play in the Super Bowl. I'm gonna get a chance to do an iconic thing for this Giants team, this fan base. And you're right, Amani, the crowd was unreal that day.
Oh, and by the way, this is one of the toughest players I've ever played with, because when he did have that broken arm, the next game he goes in and somebody's gonna tackle him, and what did he do? He forearmed him with a broken arm. And I'm like, Tiki, bro, what are you doing? Tiki, he was, don't let the smooth taste fool you. This is a tough cat right here.
Sometimes I'm smart, a lot of times I'm stupid.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Now? This team that went to Super Bowl 2000, I'm watching this. We got to give it up for Jim Fossil. Rest in peace to Jim Fossil. I mean, he was a hell of a coach. He was a hell of a coach, and we won division championship. Went to that Super Bowl with him, and I know we didn't win it all, but he was a big part of changing the culture of the organization. And he pushed them all in the middle of the table. I think he was watching Kenny, what's his name, the gambler, Kenny Rogers, and he got a little excited. But I think that inspired all of us.
What's it been like being a Giants legend? You could have played for the Bengals. You could have played for the Saints, but a Giants legend.
It's different. It's a lot different, especially in this town. I mean, I go to Madison Square Garden, which is where we are right now. I go to these Knicks games. I go to these sporting events. I go anywhere, really, and there's at least somebody that recognizes me, or I hear someone from a distance yelling Cruz, or, I haven't paid for a meal in certain restaurants in quite some time. It's just a beautiful thing. You can't have it be any other way. And be born and raised in New Jersey, just down the street over the bridge. It's a dream come true. And every day I wake up, I'm still living the dream.
Let's move on to that next era of Super Bowl champions. Please welcome Chris Snee, Victor Cruz, Justin Tuck. And obviously, like Phil, you can't get it done without a quarterback. And two-time Super Bowl MVP, Eli Manning, is back with us. All right, Sean, you started right now. These are your guys, man. What made this group so special?
We'll start with Super Bowl 42. That game played out the exact way we had it prepped all week long, right? That was exactly the way we practiced it. We knew exactly how that was going to end up. Eli, why don't you take us through the best play that I think we all can remember from that game?
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to thank you and Chris for not blocking anybody on that play. I mean, what the hell? What were y'all doing?
Knew that was coming.
Snee, you were in there you did not touch one person. You're just like, I almost threw you the ball. You were standing right in front of me. You're looking at me I'm open. I'm like, you're not supposed to be doing this. But, and then, it worked up just like Coach Coughlin, drew it up. He said, no one block anybody. Eli, be the great athlete that you are. Run around, break a couple tackles, and then throw it to Tyree's helmet in the middle of the field, surrounded by 3 or 4 defensive players. And it worked. It worked. Amen. Amen. Now, while we were doing all that on offense, Stray, you guys were getting after a TB, and I'll never forget when Coach Coughlin came in on his Wednesday meeting. He had his 25 keys to victory, and by the end of the year, it was like 50 keys. But the number one thing he said is, we're going to hit Tom Brady. We're going to hit him on every single play. Spags talking to you guys about that too. Take us into that defensive meeting room and your guys' mindset as you went against the number one offense in the league that year.
It was just one of those things where there's one time in my career I can remember being on the field where all 11 guys were locked in. Like there are games you got 2, 3, 4, 5 at the most. All 11 locked in, and then on offense, from how they performed, they were locked in. So it was a special experience to be on the field and I didn't get to Brady, but then he's on the ground, and I look up and he's getting up, OC's getting up, Alfred's getting up, Fred Robbins is getting up, Kavika Mitchell, like everybody was hitting him. So it was just a thing of confidence, and they played us at the wrong time for them and the right time for us.
Hey, Justin, I want to ask you this because, talk about that game and all that, but what you learned from being around these guys and how that inspired you and helped you become a better player.
All right, so I'm going to tell you the nice parts about Strahan. One thing that he did for me was he allowed me to just watch him. And that's just been passed down in what it means to be a Giant. And as I'm sitting on this stage and I'm seeing all these Giants, right, that's what it's always been about. So when I came in, I just watched him, and no one outworked him. Everybody thinks Michael is this talented, just uber talented, strong, which he is. But the reason why Michael was Michael is because me and Osa used to have plots of trying to kick him out of the league. Am I lying?
No, because you would tell me you're trying to kick me out the league.
We made up a song about kicking Michael Strahan out of the league.
I want to hear it. Sing it for us.
Long time ago.
No. I want you to show them how you used to tell me you're going to kick me out the league.
Well, I think this is where Strahan got that whole stomp you out thing, because me and Osa used to walk behind him and just go like, get out. and to be very honest with you, we could never get rid of him. He left on his own accord.
Can I tell them the response?
Listen, man, it's your show. Go ahead.
Like LT told me in the back when he was right. He said, I gave you your job, which he's right when he retired. And I told Tuck, I love you.
I still hate him to this day for this, by the way.
But you will always be my backup as long as I decide to play football.
Tuck likes to bust my balls about the brother-in-law treatment, Freddie and I had in one-on-one pass pro, but
tell him the agreement though.
That was special.
In all seriousness,
special. They made a lot of noises and didn't do it.
But when we practiced, we got after each other. And I think that's what made us successful, and we took pride in running the ball. We really did. Moving the guy across from you against their wills, there's no better feeling.
Victor, what about for you? I mean, you weren't drafted. You're a free agent. You're a local guy. And, you got hurt. You got hurt, and, 2011, you got a chance. Dropped that third down pass in Washington in the opener. Next thing you know, Brandon Stokely's here, and they're thinking, well, maybe that could. And then you got your chance against the Eagles when they had what they called, like, the dream team. And you just shredded them, and then the rest was history. Well, what was that journey like for you?
It was actually incredible for me just to, I had to just work hard to just garner the respect of someone like Eli, right? I think, stories like Eli calling me up in the offseason prior to that year and it being a lockout, and I was the only one local. I was the only one that was able to come throw with him, and now we end up in a dog park in Hoboken, New Jersey, throwing the ball around. And shout out to Jersey, everybody in here from New Jersey, of course. But I think it was that early, relationship and that early just conversation of him not only just throwing me footballs, but giving me a piece of the offense, telling me what he liked in certain plays, what he's looking for, and that kind of gave me a little bit of a head start. So you fast forward to the Philadelphia game, and now I'm looking around, and I think I was the only guy that had been there that long, and we had a couple injuries, and I think coach was looking at me like, all right, we're going to start you, but don't F this up, okay? And I got in there, and 3 catches and 100 yards later and 2 touchdowns, the legend was born, and the salsa dance later, the legend was born.
Bob, could I take a commercial break just for a second, please? Yeah. I think it bears making the statement because we've talked about some of the injuries that we've had and had to overcome. We've talked about some of the obstacles that we had to overcome. And I think at this point it would be very appropriate to acknowledge the head trainer of the New York Football Giants.
Ronnie Barnes.
Is sitting in the audience.
Ronnie. Stand up, Ronnie. Stand up.
Ronnie Barnes.
George, that was a perfect way to end that segment. On Giants.com, there's been fan voting as we've tried to identify the greatest play in Giants history. I mean, how do you find a singular greatest play in a franchise that's had 99 years of success and 8 championships and so many Hall of Famers in those busts you saw? But as voted on by the fans and presented by Hackensack Meridian Health, let's take a look at what has come down to the greatest play in the history of the New York Football Giants.
17-14, fellas. 1 touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Giants down by 4, 14-10. 3rd and 5 from their own 44.
You've got a stomach for high drama. This is it. Doesn't get any better than this.
Manning takes the snap. Back to throw. Under pressure, avoids the rush, and he's going to fight out of it. Still fights out of it. Now throws it deep downfield. Tyree, who makes the catch at the 22-yard line. What a play by Manning. He eluded 3 sacks. And what a catch by Tyree with 58 seconds to go. Tyree had Harrison all over him. The ball was on his helmet, but he got his other hand on it and pulled it in. What a catch by Tyree.
Oh, what a play by the quarterback.
Let's welcome the man who not only made the catch, but was also a Pro Bowler on special teams and caught a touchdown pass early in the 4th quarter to give the Giants the lead in that game. Please welcome David Tyree. So, David, the fans have spoken. How does it feel to have the greatest play in the history of a franchise about to celebrate its 100th year?
This is a dream come true, and a dream that I couldn't have dreamed myself, to be amongst this amazing legacy of the New York Football Giants. And I tell you, when they wrote me that check for $27,000, man, I was a Giants fan for life.
Oh, amazing. Boy, Eli, that blocking story you told really showed in that video.
Wow. Shut it, Bob.
What were you doing, Snee?
As we mentioned at the beginning of the night, the Giant fans are the true champions with the support of this franchise for now going on 100 years. And it is with great pleasure that I bring to the stage a man who served this country in World War II. And on June the 5th, he celebrated a few weeks ago his 100th birthday. He has witnessed every New York Giant championship. He started watching games, in the Polo Grounds in Yankee Stadium. He's an American hero, 100 years young, and the best Giant fan out there. Please welcome,
from Middletown, New York, Lou LaFreeze.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this walk through the history of the New York Football Giants as we embark upon season 100. Wow. And we've had so many great things that are lined up for you during the course of the season. Kickoff weekend, Hard Knocks coming out on July the 2nd. The top 100 players in the history of the franchise. The podcast will begin being released on July the 9th. and we will count down. Over 5,000 men have worn a New York Giants uniform. We have put together an independent blue ribbon panel that has selected the top 100 players in the history of the Giants. You can follow that all year long. So for this great list of champions, Hall of Famers, and once a Giant, always a Giant, New York Giants, thank you so much for kicking off season 100, presented by Verizon.